Hello, everybody. Can you hear me all right? Cool, thank you. All right. Still figuring this out. All right, let me do a few quick other things. Real quick. Maybe. Well, I'd like to be on video if I can, but maybe that's just asking too much for this one. A nice frozen image of me. All right. How about this? I think I'm actually moving. Hopefully, I'm hoping I can use my phone to kind of quality control this. So hello, everybody, and thank you for joining on this midweek review. I am Indian Quack Dr. Shamir, still trying to figure out how technology works. I don't know how many of these I'll be able to do, but I'm very much looking forward to it and very much looking forward to being able to talk like directly with people. I have been very frustrated at not having time to dedicate people. I have been very frustrated at not having time to dedicate towards making content. But this kind of video doesn't take too much work for me to it doesn't take much prep work, so the time commitment isn't huge. I don't know if you can see my dog. You want to come up, buddy? You can fit up here. Come on up. You got it. Come on up. You want to meet everybody? Hey, come here. He usually thinks he can fit on my little lap, but I guess not that time. So we'll jump in real quick. Just want to say hi real fast to everybody. Thank you for joining, M Lane and Deus, Jason. Love your content. Boston, huge shout out to Boston. I had originally planned this 7 a.m, and Boston gave me some good feedback on that. I apparently would have been streaming by myself then, I'm guessing. Molester. You dummy, of course, legend. Phyllis, great to see you. Bobby, show your dog's face. That's always the silliest argument of George, to show your face. Not only, as many people point out, because he himself often doesn't show his face, but then once you do, he doesn't, like, there's no follow up. He challenges you to show your face, and then you do, and then he just kind of walks away. So, how are you all today? And please do let me know. Again, this is my second time trying to do this. I'm sure it's going to be pretty rocky. I love constructive criticism. You're not going to hurt my feelings. If you have any user experience issues, please do call them out. So our call this week. Oh, well, I'm glad you could join us, Deus, even though you're at work. It really, Bobby, it really is a privilege to be able to sleep indoors. So this week's Phyllis call, titled "Gigi Got a Pedicure with Watt," is going the mouth off to the cops. I'm sure when we all saw that, the pedicure aspect was something that was going to be pretty intriguing. One thing I really love about these Phyllis calls is uh, just how much we learn about George. George, he often makes the argument that because these calls are recorded, that makes them recorded without his knowledge, that makes them illegitimate. But in actuality, the fact that he doesn't know he's being recorded and uh, believes he's in a safe space to say whatever he wants, that actually is what makes it the most legitimate content. And so it's super interesting, all the little nuggets of information we learn throughout these calls. And I think it's just really interesting to go over the details. And big shout out, of course, to the Inner Circle, and George Yarid has a negative bank account for producing the content. I do also want to shout out Phyllis, obviously. I don't think it may not be appreciated how hard I think her job is through all of this, as far as being behind enemy lines. On the surface, it's easy to say like, oh, well, Phyllis is a female, doesn't take much effort to, you know, trick George into trusting you if you're a woman. But think about just how sensitive George is to any bit of criticism. Even in these Phyllis calls, you can hear when she says something that's contrary to what George believes. I mean, you can hear him start to get hot about it. It's happened several times throughout these calls, these, half a dozen that we've gotten so far. So I just want to commend Phyllis. I mean, being a double agent with George, it's not some easy task. You have to be very careful about what you say, because if one wrong misstep and hurting his feelings, he may never talk to you again, and the faucet is shut off permanently. And then even beyond that, just all the disgusting things that he says. Yeah, get in there. So some highlights from this call. So Gigi did indeed go get a pedicure with Watt. He's got his issues with detectives. And I mean, I do wonder if there are any like lifers at Henrico Police Department who have genuinely been dealing with George on this for 20 years. That um yeah, it's crazy to think that there's like one contact at Henrico PD that George is going to with all this stuff. And once again, George brings up the goons a lot in this call, unprovoked. Seems more often than not, he's the one bringing them up, not Phyllis. And sometimes on the surface, it may not seem like obsession, but the fact that the goons' actions are a part of his daily thoughts, I think, are pretty alarming. And shout out to Colonel Kurtz. I'm pretty certain is the one who photoshopped this photo that is the lovely thumbnail. So the first thing I wanted to talk about on this call is the thing that kind of got me most hot. So throughout this call, Phyllis states several times that she is sick and has a sore throat and it hurts to talk. You know of different things of that variance, and I counted 6 times that she mentioned during this phone call that her throat hurt, she was sick or something. So, first question for chat: how many times do you think Gigi said anything to the effect of, "Oh, I'm sorry you're not feeling well. Would you like to talk a different time? I understand that your throat hurts. If you want me to call later, I can. I'm sorry you're sick." Go ahead and throw a number out there, chat. Thank you, Boston. Yeah, I counted 0 and I listened to it multiple times. I mean, it may even be fair to give that a negative number because not only does George not respond with empathy at all to Phyllis stating that she didn't feel well, but George, more often than not, tends to change the subject to something that concerns him. This is classic up and down narcissistic behavior. One of the biggest pitfalls is a complete lack of empathy. And again, on the surface, this may not seem like some huge, egregious thing, but imagine being close to somebody in your life and they simply never ask you, never show any consideration to your feelings. I mean, that does run a person down mentally over time. And we see here again, I mean, even for someone like Phyllis, who George seems to genuinely like and is likely crushing on, even somebody that George may be like romantically interested in, at the end of the day, it comes down to what can that person do for George? You know, that George isn't concerned about Phyllis's health. He's concerned about what Phyllis can do to help him. This may be a unpopular opinion, but I thought George and Watt's little day together was a little adorable. I'm gonna be honest. So they had themselves a nice little afternoon, early evening. Let's run down what they did. So comedy and karaoke. Sounds like they hit up a pub and each attempted to do what they believe they're good at. Uh, and it's important to know what you're not good at because you're a huge bother to people when you don't. Yeah. Molester, I'm sure there was a lot of romantic nature to it. All right, I'm going to try and play this video. I have no idea if the audio will come through good. We'll see how this goes. But this should hopefully just be like a 20-second clip from the video.
Yeah, got a bite to eat. Went to the pub, and he just got a comedy and whatnot. We're trying to maybe get karaoke in there. Oh yeah. I went to my dad's graveyard too. Yeah, that's right. Thank you. Went to my dad's graveyard, so that was probably the most memorable thing that I did.
What place for the karaoke were you talking about?
So hopefully you heard that clip okay. But yeah, so George was talking about they went to a pub to get a bite to eat, and then Watt started doing comedy, which I'm curious to know if that was even a part of the restaurant's plans. I mean, the way George said it, it makes it seem like it was just like a normal pub. And Watt, after they were done eating and having a few beers, Watt just went up there and started drunkenly doing a stand-up routine, which, you know, based off this latest skit he and George did, if that's an accurate representation of Watt's sense of humor, I can't imagine anybody in the pub was enjoying that. And then George says he did karaoke. And at the end of that clip, I don't know if you caught it, George said, you know, he had thought about doing karaoke there, but the pub owner said they don't do that there. And so the picture in my mind is George went up there and did karaoke after Watt was done with comedy. And then after that, he went over to the manager and was like, "Hey, that was really fun. Can I come back and do karaoke?" And the manager was like, "No, we don't do karaoke here ever. We don't do comedy either. You know what? We're probably just going to close. You and your friend don't need to come back here anymore." Yeah. Yeah, M Lane. As long as George was saying the N word as a part of the comedy act and not out of anger, then it wouldn't be a big deal. That's not racist. Yeah, completely agreed, Bobby. And so the pedicure, yeah, let's talk about that. That's an interesting decision, as yeah, as Jason and Mo Lester both say. Um, when you're living in a van and living off of DoorDash funds, I don't know if going to a pub and a pedicure are good priorities. Though I don't doubt that Gigi's feet need it. Um, and yeah, it's hard to imagine. I'm gonna guess the person who did George's pedicure was wearing latex gloves. Here's hoping. I did not enjoy how George talked about getting a pedicure sexually. And again, I mean, just his lack of empathy for how the person doing his pedicure feels with him being so weirdly erotic about it. Yeah, a hazmat suit would have been appropriate. But yeah, it's just so gross. George, I mean, the way he talked about it, I bet if he had the physical ability, he would have gotten an erection while having someone work on his feet. And I think he would have been proud by it too. He also made the joke that he wanted to have a pedicure done on his penis, which a pedicure, I'm pretty sure that like the whole process is removing dead skin. I don't I mean maybe George's penis is so underused that it has just kind of developed like a snake. It just needs to shed its skin or something. I don't know. I don't intend to go too much into that. I also, this is one of those little things. I mean, listening to these calls, just kind of all these little intricacies about how George's thought process works. Oh, hey, Comalize. Yeah, sorry, Boston. Uh, just kind of seeing how his thought process works is super interesting. Um, I thought it was very intriguing that Watt had to remind George that they went to see George's father at Forest Lawn Cemetery. I just thought it was interesting that that's like not at the top of George's brain. Like if he does like three things in one day and one of them is see his father's grave, he's not even going to remember that amongst the three things. And you have to wonder, and I'm curious what your all your opinion is, y'all's opinion. Um, do you think George goes to the cemetery to visit his father, or does he go there to see if the goons have been there? He knows the goons have been there. Hey, Finite, thanks for joining. And no, I do not doubt the goons will ever stop. So, what do you guys think? Did George, you think George left anything out on his day with Watt? They went to the pub, they got a petty, they hit up the cemetery. Wonder if they did anything else. He's not telling us. Oh, that's fair, Dave. Yeah, Finite. I just find it so interesting how much time and effort went into went into his Boogeyman video. And I believe it's this call. I think it's this call, maybe it's the previous one. George calls the Boogeyman video. He first called it the funniest thing he's ever done, and then clarified as one of the funniest things he's ever done, because I think he doesn't want to admit he's, never done anything funny. But yeah, George was very proud of that video. Oh, hey, Billy Baxter. Yeah, the Dr. Gregorius Seaman skit. The classic. That's going to become one of those classic comedy routines like Who's on First. 50 years from now, young comedians are going to be doing the Dr. Gregorius Seaman bit, try and hone their chops. Yeah, you dummy. I think that's fair. Like from a creative level, he got outside his box there. But it's funny to me that he seemingly spent like upwards to a month planning that. And then Eugene's response video, like, didn't he do that within a day? And it was so much better. Like, not only funnier, but better produced. So once again, in this call, Gigi talks a lot about the goons, kind of an alarming level. And I would be really curious to know. He name drops Eugene a lot, and he's not in this. He's not in the video, so I can't ask, or not in the chat. But no, he's not in this video. Eugene does not live here. But I would be curious to know exactly what he thinks about the fact that George has him on his mind so often. Like as a troll, I gotta imagine it's somewhat satisfying to know you've really dug into someone's brain, but at the same time, I gotta imagine it's a little alarming to think that George is spontaneously bringing you up in his head throughout the day. Like at any given moment, George could just be thinking about Eugene. I don't know. That would make me uncomfortable. Hey, MDP. Thanks for joining. We're all very much looking forward to the game, man. And also regarding Eugene, he talks about the cease and desist, the now famous cease and desist that he sent him. And George mentions in this video that it's gonna is it Captain's? Oh, if I've misattributed, please let me know. But yeah, that cease and desist, he said George said that it was going to cost him an arm and a leg. Okay, thanks, MDP. That's what I thought. Yeah, George says it's going to cost him an arm and a leg to get a lawyer for this cease and desist, and he did it anyway. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, because I remember Eugene read the cease and desist letter, and it seemed like something like if you just Googled a generic cease and desist letter, that seems like what the content was. So I'm surprised he had a lawyer for that. If he ended up not doing that, then tell me and I'll, correct it. But if he paid money for that and that was a priority for him, wow. This is a man who doesn't care what another man thinks about him, by the way. He's definitely keeping tabs on YouTube, too. Oh, hey, Lewis. And Komalai's possibly. I think Gigi, emailing seems to be his favorite method of contact, and I think he emails a lot of people to threaten him. George and I don't have a lot of communication between us, but I do tend to hear from him when I release a new video. He'll say something racist, so I think that's just par for the course for him. But yeah, George knows his stuff when it comes to the YouTube channels out there about him. I thought it was so funny that he name dropped the negative bank account backup channel. He knows the full name of George Yarid still has a negative bank account. Like, for a guy who doesn't seem that intelligent, and it's been joked about, or maybe it's serious. I know I've heard people say he keeps a binder of the trolls. I wonder if he really does have like a running list of every YouTube channel that exists of who's made content about him. Oh, really? Well, that's interesting, Billy. I'm guessing he's just really butthurt about the name. But yeah, so it sounds like, George Yarid has a negative bank account, and Fieldins, Captain Corpulence, and myself are on the chopping block for getting taken down, which I look forward to that. Yeah, another just kind of silly thing. I feel like if George had the ability to be honest about himself, he'd receive so much less criticism. But he talks about getting a restraining order against Jay Smith, and he directly says in this video that he is hesitant to get it because of how it will make him look to the goons. This is a man who cares very much about what the goons thinks about him. He says specifically in this video that it'll make him look weak to the goons. And this is the same man who will, always come on and say he doesn't care what another man thinks about him. He makes his own decisions. Nobody controls him. But in these calls, I find it very interesting to learn exactly how much of his life is controlled by the goons, just in that he makes his decisions based off of how they will be received by the goons once they find out. Yeah, right, Billy. And I believe someone else has pointed out that in this video he admits to that fact that he knows he has to say that he is afraid for legal recourse. And so if he ever does do that, I mean, there's audio evidence of him knowing how to manipulate that system and lie to get that. Oh, okay. So this is a question I have for the group. So Phyllis informs George that a photo was taken of him sleeping, and George responds by asking, like, was it one of him laying down or one of him hunched over? And so I just genuinely would like help illustrating this scene. How exactly is George sleeping when he says he's hunched over? Like, does he mean like in the driver's seat and he's hunched over the steering wheel, or something else? Does anybody else have a different picture? I'm just curious what exactly George means when he says hunched over. Oh, that's interesting, molester. He's out drinking and driving, and he just gets into a parking lot and does a full fronter onto the dashboard. Thank you, Lewis. It's a weird phenomenon. Whenever you get into a position, a professional position like I'm in, people generally think you are no longer able to have a sense of humor or able to make fun of people. That's not true. I am still a human being, but you can let me know if you think I'm being too mean as a psychologist. Oh yeah, so I want to play this clip just as kind of a antithesis to what I've been talking about with George. So again, hopefully the audio quality is decent here. Let me know if not. Do you hear any audio at all? I feel like you don't. Man, does somebody have Roger's number? I need a mixing expert. I am failing at this. Well, I wonder if I can. Deus, I'm curious to know what you would do with Roger's number. True, finite. I guess I mean to say I'm just not privileged enough to have that. But yeah, so sorry I'm not able to play the clip. But yeah, so George brings up the fact that Casey, his friend Casey, who I don't know his history too well. I know George; he's always been on George's side, and George paid Casey to edit his book, smart move, and but Casey chides George, from how I interpreted it, about the fact that he and Phyllis had been talking for so long but have never met. So George is pressuring Phyllis to do like a video chat with him so he can see her face. And I'm real sorry about this, especially if Phyllis is watching still. I mean, he just, wanted to put a face to the fantasy. But he's kind of complaining about not having done that with Phyllis, and he's name dropping Casey as the excuse so he can put that on him. He doesn't have the courage to just ask himself. And I absolutely love Phyllis's response. George is someone who says he doesn't care what other people think about him. Well, Phyllis embodies that. She just says, like, George, I don't care what Casey thinks. I don't care what Casey says. I thought that was really cool. That was really funny to me. Definitely different than how George thinks. Thank you, Louis. I saw you said I should move my face cam, and I was just thinking, like, what does he mean? Like, I thought you meant like maybe the framing was really bad, or I should keep my dog out of it. But I see now that the little insert of the video is blocking the text. Thank you, Louis. Boom. All right, temporarily. Yeah, I mean, Phyllis, I'm sure Casey, well, I guess, I don't know if you mean Casey asking a lot about you or George asking a lot about doing a video conference, but I imagine George asked you a lot, Phyllis, to make some kind of physical or visual contact. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, so, for some people, trolling George just comes natural. And I'd like to get your guys' opinion on, George is just so easy. And for some people, I think maybe so fun to troll that sometimes you do it without even trying. And so I'd like to get your guys' opinion. Is there anybody you think has unintentionally trolled George that you're a big fan of? I have two, if I can give mine real quick. One is Jamie, when she... Dave says God. Not a bad answer. Jamie, she had a court case. She was like going to court against George, and George had paid $1,000 for a lawyer, and Jamie ended up not showing up, so George spent that $1,000 for nothing. I always thought that was like really good trolling that I don't think Jamie intended to do, but she got George to pay $1,000 for court, and then she didn't show up. uh, and I also I'll let me read the other ones before I give my second. His dad trolled him the second he was born by naming him gay. Yeah. Life trolled him. Have a good night, Emlane. Thanks for hanging out. I am curious what your guys' opinion. And again, so I am not in the inner circle, never have been. I'm not anywhere close to that. I'm just I'm just some guy who's a psychologist and making videos. I'm not like juiced into the big wigs here. So I have a conspiracy theory that Casey is a troll, and I base that on the fact that, well, not the fact, my opinion that getting George to pay him to edit George's book and then not editing it so it's released as that garbage, to me, that is one of the best trolls of George there is. So that makes me wonder if Casey is not playing for Team George. Oh, Phyllis says yeah, I mean, that's fair too. Phyllis, that's very fair too. He could also just be using George. I mean, yeah, I guess it's fair to say Casey doesn't have to be a goon to have just ripped George off for money. Finite, who is Kevin E? I don't think I know who that is. All right. Okay. Oh, Kevin E is the guy from Germany. Okay. Hey, Nurse Joy. Thanks for joining. Indian Quack Dr. Shamir here. So is there anybody else you think had a really good unintentional troll on George? Gary? Is Gary's the one Jamie was a caretaker for, right? Did he troll George by stealing his girl? Right. She died in that Jewish man's house. I didn't see her for 6 GD months. You're just pissing me the fuck off right now. George in this call is also having a real hard time with technology. I thought it was interesting that he mentioned he had to get a phone downgrade, which is, I mean, really, I think the only time that really ever happens in contemporary society is when you break your phone and you can't afford a replacement or a newer version. So you got to step down, which again, it's just like, I mean, on the surface, that may not be anything terribly important, but it's just so interesting about these phone calls, just to kind of learn the minutia of how George's day to day operates. I'm sorry if that was a jump scare. I guess I should have warned you. I didn't realize exactly how big in the frame I made that photo. George has a lot of standing rage too. It's very concerning to me how he goes from 0 to 100 so quickly when he gets signed out of his DoorDash app or can't make something on his phone work. And yeah, his failure with phone call merges in this video was kind of cringy to have to sit through. He's almost as bad as I am with technology. It would be fun to see George try and stream, with complex tools like the WTRD crew does it. What do you think historically? A question, buddy. I see you. Sorry. A question for chat. I'm sorry if that bark was really loud. A question for chat. What other technology fails do you think George has really exhibited over the years? I mean, it's he's got a pretty deep niche with filming his dashboard when he makes a video. Like, he doesn't want to show his face, and so he just wants to point it at some black object, so it's like a black screen. But yeah, every vehicle he's owned. Oh, that's really interesting, Billy Baxter. Yeah, I mean, we've never heard George really talk about contemporary TV shows. Definitely does not seem like the kind of guy who's streaming. Yeah, he is really bad at that, Mo Lester. He somehow does seem to find like the ugliest angle he can get. Like whatever unappealing feature of his face happens to be most aggressive that day, he somehow seems to put it center focus. No, I'm not really too much one to talk. I am noticing this camera angle is showing off my balding head pretty well. It's almost like my hair. Does this look like a toupee at this angle? It's almost like my hair is just like all sitting on there. My receding hairline is the thing I'm most self-conscious about. And number 2 is my Indian heritage. So you can imagine George has been really crushing me with the insults lately. He's been putting me to the mat. I appreciate that. Well, that's it for this Phyllis call. It was a great one. Any final thoughts? I don't think I have any. Let me check my notes. The little his leading period joke at the front of the call was pretty gross, but that's again that I think that's just another par for the course kind of thing. I think we all saw it coming when he mentioned Count Dracula. What'd y'all think of? So, did you all? Oh, okay. I had top chat on instead of live chat. Damn it. I'm really sorry if anybody said anything in chat that I didn't acknowledge. I probably missed half of it. I'm sorry about that. Another lesson for next time. I'm curious, did anybody here actually watch the entire video of George and DeWatt doing their skit? Because it was like 15 minutes long. I could not watch the whole thing. I kind of I like had to skim through it. Yeah, it was hard. And I mean, even it was so poorly made. Yeah, even if you enjoyed their sense of humor, I think it would be really hard to enjoy that video. I mean, the framing was just so bad. I remember the shot of Watt where he's standing. It didn't change when he sat down, so it just like Watt filled up like the bottom third of the frame. It was just so ugly. And the shot of George, he's center frame, which I thought looked really bad. If you're Wes Anderson, you can get away with that. If you're George Yarid, not so much. And he looked into the camera several times. Like it's just, and I mean, it's two buddies making a little comedy video. You don't expect it to be like a beacon of cinema verite, but it just there was nothing aesthetically appealing about it. The only the audio quality, like you could tell they were using the camera mic because of how different each guy's audio was from the shots based off of their physical proximity to the camera. I will say though, when I first watched it, there was one thing I thought was really positive that I really liked. The shot of Watt, it has like a quarter of Gigi in the foreground, and I was like, hey, that's a really good reference shot. That's awesome. That's great, Def. I think that's a really clever shot. But then I realized that it's just George is so obese that he spills into the frame. So for any thespians in the Richmond area, if you share the stage with George, you're not going to get a single shot. But yeah, I mean, if they want to, the baby maker, if they want to make their little videos, good for them. I mean, they're having fun together and not out hurting other people. But yeah, I just hope they I hope they put a little more effort into the next video that they make. Especially because, I mean, me personally, like if George is going to make a video and I'm going to cover him, cover him psychologically, do this psychological commentary, I want to be able to watch things that George makes, but yeah, like it's impossible to get through a video like that. I hope he considers his audience's experience the next time he makes content, and yeah, tries to put a little more effort into it. Oh, hey, Ginzel. And yeah, that's fair. Well, that's everything I had. I appreciate everybody joining. It's cool to be able to interact with y'all directly, and I really do apologize about the time mess up. I suck. But yeah, this was a lot of fun, and I really appreciate that I wasn't doing this alone to nobody. So thank you for joining, and I really appreciate everything y'all do. Reading your comments is so fun, and for you content producers, watching your videos is a lot of fun. So thank you all, and yeah, I'm gonna hop off, but I hope I get to do this again, and hope to see y'all in chat Friday night for the WTRD stream. Have a good rest of your Wednesday.